Hi again. In Dwight Wilson, Armageddon Now, page 155, the chapter is From Sinful Alliance to Christian Realism. Here, Wilson is looking over the post-World War II response to the Cold War, and has just been discussing the urging of some Christian leaders to strike Russia preemptively before they too got the nuclear weapon. Wilson goes on, as the Cold War began to develop, detailed analyses appeared, such as Dan Gilbert's Russia's Next Move in the Light of Bible Prophecy. He noted that secular writers could not understand Russia's interest in moving against Iran, but prophecy students knew that it was in fulfillment of Ezekiel's prophecy, that is, chapter 38, verse 5, that Persia would be an ally of Russia. One of Russia's next moves would be an occupation of Turkey, as she moved south to annex Ethiopia and Libya, another fulfillment of Ezekiel 38:5. A study of Soviet diplomacy indicates that Stalin is now in the process of building that very empire outlined in Ezekiel 38:39. That was in Dan Gilbert's book, Russia's Next Move in the Light of Bible Prophecy. This sense of impending crisis paralleled the growing hostilities in Palestine and resulted in renewed expectation of Armageddon. The Evangel magazine underscored columnist Dorothy Thompson's piece headed Armageddon, which had stated, "It is entirely possible that World War III will start in 90 days. In April 1948, an Evangel article, God and the World Crisis, stated that very likely the Arabs would ask help from Russia, and Russia would accept this opportunity. 9 countries of Eastern Europe are already united. The stage is setting for the Great Battle of Armageddon." This supposedly meant that the United Nations was doomed. Anticipation heightened in 1948 as Israel declared her independence. The communists took over Czechoslovakia, and the Berlin blockade was established. Our Hope magazine's observation on the blockade was that the end might be near, and, quote, "the Moscow bear's paw will crush all opposition east and southeast, but not toward the west." At the end of November, the Evangel was explaining why the nations of the world were insanely spending 1/3 of their incomes on the arms race. They were under the diabolic influence of the 3 unclean spirits of Revelation 16:13, which were gathering the nations to the battle of Armageddon. The Evangel relentlessly continued this battle cry through the first half of 1949. It cited the prediction in Review of World Affairs that Russia would move towards Palestine in the next decade. A quotation from the Bible and the News observed that, quote, "whether this invasion will occur in 1949 or later, it is a question that is much discussed," end of quote. One article, Things to Come, quoted the Truman Committee's report, quote, "atomic war will start on, before, or at least by, January 1953. All this self-induced excitement finally climaxed in D.P. Holloway's Russia and Armageddon. That we are nearing the great battle of Armageddon, there can be very little doubt, Holloway said. In the summer of 1949, a series by Harry A. Ironside appeared in Our Hope under the title Setting the Stage for the Last Act of the Great World Drama. He, too, had the same sense of urgency about Russia and Germany forming a confederation. Remember, this is Ironside, direct quote, "Had not this almost taken shape already? Now look at the northern part of the stage. Is there no significance in the apparent determination of Russia to dominate Germany? Take the Church of God out of the world tomorrow," referring here apparently to the rapture, "and that confederation might spring into existence at once." End of quote from Ironside. Yet Ironside did not foresee the culmination of all this for at least another 1,000 years. According to his unique scheme, the Northern Confederacy was to be destroyed at the end of the millennium. This is a reference to the fact that, yes, on a surface reading, it does appear, according to Revelation at least, that Gog and Magog attack is at the end of the 1,000 years. Wilson goes on, amazingly, even though the last act was still a millennium away, By noting that Russia and Germany were already on the stage, he was able to generate excited expectancy of the rapture of the church. In September 1949, the Russians exploded their first atomic bomb. Curiously enough, the premillenarian response was subdued. In fact, nearly non-existent. Perhaps after a couple of years of frantically crying Armageddon now, they were suffering from emotional battle fatigue, or maybe the awareness that the enemy also had the bomb was a sobering experience. The King's Business magazine, which had said little about Russia, blandly headed an editorial, "Russia has it. Now what?" The editor said that this was, quote, "but another step in the advance of Russia toward the goal of this Northern Confederacy," unquote, and that the proper response for the Christian was not to get alarmed, but to, quote, "rest upon his divinely given knowledge of coming events," end of quote. I'll put in a link to Nelson Barber and Charles Taze Russell on Russia, Israel, Jerusalem in 1914. See you next time.